Hello, my name is Jordan Georgie, and I will be doing your orientation webinar today. Most times I like to do orientation over the phone to get to know you better, but sometimes due to situations out of our control or in order to move the process forward quicker, I send this orientation webinar instead because it's also a great tool for you to be able to refer back to throughout your adoption process as well. So whenever you received the India orientation email, you noticed it has a lot of links and information. I urge you to save this email by either bookmarking it, printing it, whatever's easiest for you to make sure that you have access to this because you'll need to access these checklists again several times throughout the adoption process and as you are downloading PDFs and uploading PDFs to that portal. And you may need to refer to some of the other information in the email as well as you move forward. In order to access the checklist in our portal, you'll need to sign in using the same email and password that you used whenever you created your online application with Nightlight. There is a link posted here as well as in the email for password help should you require it. So just know that if you have any issues with your password that you can use this link to get that fixed. So we will be discussing several items to get you started on your adoption journey, and hopefully by the end of this talk, you will have a better grasp on all that is required and an idea of where you need to start. I promise you that you will feel quite overwhelmed, but there are ways to break the process into parts so that it seems more manageable. Today we will also be going over Hague orientation topics, talking about choosing home study providers, touching on parent education, discussing filing your I-800A with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, talking through the service plan, and answer any questions that you have about the dossier instructions for India. So first I would like to start off by introducing myself and telling you a little bit about our India team and a little bit about our agency. My name is Jordan Georgie. I have worked with Nightlight since April of 2017, and I am the India, Nigeria, and Haiti Programs Assistant, and I oversee the adoption process from the point of families being inquiries up until their dossier submission, as well as the post-adoption report tracker for our India and Nigeria families once they've brought their children home. I am also the Missouri International Home Study Coordinator, and I oversee the coordinating of document completion for all internationally adopting families who live in Missouri and are doing their home studies through Nightlight. Nikki Lossie is the International Program Director for our India and Nigeria programs. Nikki oversees families from the point of dossier submission through matching and then up until a family travels home. Nikki has worked in international adoption for 21 years as she worked for Children's Hope International and then came on to Nightlight January of 2019 when Children's Hope transferred their families to Nightlight. Nikki is an adoptee and also a mother to 3 children, including one that was adopted from China. Nightlight has been in operation since the 1950s. In addition to many international programs, we also offer domestic programs, home study services, foster programs, and Nightlight pioneered the Snowflakes embryo adoption as well. So the Missouri office is formally known as Love Basket, which was established in 1982. Love Basket was founded on the India program in 1982 and eventually had several country programs and a domestic program as well. Love Basket officially merged with Nightlight in January of 2016, so that is all just some information about our India program, Nightlight, and Love Basket. So the best way that I have found to go through the documents is to go to the India orientation email and open up that orientation document checklist. In the dossier webinar that is also linked in your orientation email, I explain each document in the dossier by explaining its purpose. I am happy to answer any remaining questions that you have after you have reviewed that webinar, and we can also schedule a phone call too if you would prefer. Next, I will discuss why children in India are available for adoption. India does not utilize foster care, so all of the children are in an orphanage group home setting. If the orphanage is certified by CARA to conduct adoption, they do have a certain level of cleanliness that they have to maintain. Children are usually abandoned or surrendered in India. If the child is abandoned, there is no health or prenatal information with them. Children are usually abandoned or surrendered due to them having some sort of special need, as oftentimes Indian families don't want to have children that have special needs. Some families abandon or surrender their child due to economic issues because they sometimes just can't afford to keep their child. Natural disasters and the death of biological parents are also other reasons that children are available for adoption in India. Another big reason is due to the stigma of unwed mothers. So, birth mothers who have their babies out of wedlock are cast out of society. So, if they do not choose to abort their babies, they often carry them full term in secrecy, which just takes a lot of bravery because they have to make sure that it's not found out by any of the other people that are in their village. And then they give birth to them in secrecy, and they'll drop their baby off in the middle of the night at an orphanage. So, usually, when an Indian birth mother drops her baby off at the orphanage, there is a basket outside of it, and the orphanage workers will look away to give the birth mother her privacy, and then they will take the baby from the basket once the birth mother walks away. So, this is actually, in fact, how Love Basket got its name. So, because of the privacy rights of the birth mother being so highly protected, 95% of the time we won't know the identity of the birth mother. So, this means that when your child is an adult, it is almost impossible for them to find who their birth mother is. So, next, I wanted to touch on the most current laws in the adoption process. So, the most current laws in the adoption processes from India can be found on the CARA website at cara.nic.in. Which you can see on this slide right here. So, CARA is the acronym for India's central authority that oversees all adoptions within India, domestically as well as internationally, and it stands for Central Adoption Resource Authority. Eligibility requirements can be found on the U.S. Department of State's website. The eligibility requirements change from time to time, and Nightlight remains updated at all times. This is one of the reasons why our application form asks so many questions, because we want to ensure that you are eligible to adopt from the program that you desire before moving forward with that program. Something else important to discuss is the trend in intercountry adoptions. So, the trend in intercountry adoptions has declined by almost 70% since 2004. The reason for this decline is a result of the shift of political acceptance of intercountry adoption. Most nations navigate by two opposing forces trying to accommodate adopting parents and the needs of orphans while also satisfying powerful anti adoption influences. So, the increasing difficulty of adopting internationally is actually intentional and meant to reduce the number of adoptions. The motive behind the anti adoption movement is complicated, but it includes national pride, political retaliation, and well meaning but naive desire to prefer indigenous orphan care solutions. So I just kind of wanted to go over again, as stated earlier, adopting a healthy child from India has become quite lengthy, or a child that has no identified special needs. And our agency has no control over the rate at which referrals are made by CARA officials. So while many children with special needs are available, agencies have no control over the children made available for adoption. Your openness to gender, age range, and various medical conditions will affect the length of time that you wait for a match. The more open a family's criteria for their child, the more quickly they could be matched compared to families who request a very young child with minor special needs. So it really all depends in regards to wait time on if you are open to identified special needs, which special needs you're open to, if you're open to both genders, which ages you are eligible for and open to, and ultimately which children are available at any given time. And so all those things factor in to the wait time process for waiting for a referral. So now let's talk about post-adoption reports. First, Nightlight requires a 1 month report once you bring your child home, and this is for every country. There's a requirement that a social worker needs to meet with you and your child once you are in the first 30 days of arriving home. So there's a few ways that you can have this report written. You can travel to your nearest Nightlight office with your child, and the social worker will ask you the questions and make a report. that is, it's just short, it's answering questions. Another option is you can pay to have that social worker travel to your home, or you can even meet with, a program coordinator or social worker close by to meet with you somewhere to write the report and ask the questions. So this is something that you complete in your post-adoption report agreements. So that's something that you'll want to look into and choose which option you want whenever you're home so that you'll have a plan for that 1 month report. And then for that report, I know that there are mileage expenses, so it just depends on the state and how close you live to your office as to which option would be best for you. So just be sure to research that. From there, India requires 6 month post adoption reports. A social worker will come to your home to complete the reports for all of these. So these reports are required from India um, at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then 2 years after your child has arrived home. And I track all of these for the India families, and I make sure that social workers are aware they're coming up. I send families their post adoption report schedule so they can have it all on their calendar. And then I also have families email me their photos so that I can get it all shipped off to India in time. So, post adoption obligations should be taken very seriously. Our agency is held personally responsible for the supervision of your placement, and it's very important that you comply with reporting um, as an agency. It's something that we have to keep up on, but also because countries have been known to shut down due to post adoption reports not being followed through with. So, we just need to make sure that all families take it very seriously and do complete their required post adoption reporting. Now that we have gone over the Hague orientation topics, such as the reason that children are available for adoption in India, post adoption report requirements, adoption laws, and the reasons for the decrease in international adoption, we will next need you to sign and date the Hague orientation topics electronic form. It is important for you to review that document thoroughly and then sign off and date that. Anyone who is adopting internationally must have an approved home study applied to receive pre-approval to adopt from USCIS or the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service and prepare a set of documents called a dossier, which will be submitted to India for approval. Different countries require different documents, so that is why the dossier documents are specific to India. All of these things are discussed in the Hague orientation topics that you will need to sign and date. If you have any questions regarding any of this, feel free to contact me. There are several holidays in India in which the Indian government and Kara shut down. I have listed these on this slide for you to refer back to throughout the adoption process. Next, we will talk about choosing a home study provider. Nightlight is your placing agency for India. If you live in a state where we have an office, we will also be your home study agency. If you live outside of our service area, you must choose a Hague accredited home study provider. It is imperative under India rules and as a Nightlight requirement that your home study agency must be Hague accredited. If you live in a state served by Nightlight, you will soon be contacted by that office to begin the home study process. If you do not, there is more information to help you locate a Hague accredited provider within the orientation email. You can click on the link where a list of Hague accredited home study agencies are listed by state, or you may contact me at jordan@nightlight.org, and I can also give you the names of agencies that we have worked with that are on our preferred provider list. Finally, once your application has been accepted by the home study provider agency, please complete and upload the India Service Plan as well as the home study provider information documents located on your International Orientation Documents checklist. It is very important that you return this before you begin the home study process. The first reason is because Nightlight must have an exempt provider agreement in place with the agency prior to you beginning the home study. Secondly, it helps us to assure that the home study provider is Hague accredited agency. This is also important to note. If you do begin the home study process prior to providing Nightlight with your home study information, you may have to choose another provider, and this can result in losing any money that you paid to a previous provider. Once your home study is completed, this can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months or longer, depending on how quickly you and your social worker are able to obtain documentation. You will be ready to file the Form I-800A, Application for Determination of Suitability to Adopt a Child from a Convention Country, with USCIS. This is a form that you will complete once your home study has been finalized, as you are required to mail in a original completed finalized home study along with the application, so this is nothing to worry about now. But later on in the process, once your home study is finalized, you may go ahead and apply for your I-800A for the immigration approval and then continue to work on your dossier and completing all the dossier documents. You can find a link to that form here, and also there's further information on how to complete this in the dossier instructions booklet that I have sent you in the orientation email. And this is also something that if you complete this and you want to scan Nikki a PDF, she can also look over to make sure that everything is complete and correct before you mail that off. So know that that's a possibility as well once you get to that point. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to let us know. When you receive the orientation email and open the portal, you have access to an orientation document checklist as well as a separate checklist for international parent education documents. A link was provided to a webinar explaining Nightlight's parent education requirements. If you have not yet watched this, you'll need to go back and do so that your parent education will not be delayed. If you have not received the link to this webinar or the PDF, go ahead and send me an email at jordan@nightlight.org so I can go ahead and get that over to you. As a recap to that education webinar, all adoptive families are required to complete 10 hours of Hague education prior to completing their home study, and additional education requirements consist of reading about and understanding post-adoption stress and depression, completing a post-adoption support plan, learning about the history and culture of your child's country, speaking with a parent who has previously adopted a child from India through Nightlight, and reading a book entitled The Connected Child. You will end up with more than 12 hours of education to help prepare you for parenting an adopted child. It is important to note that these things all have to be done so that they can be cited in your home study. So they need to be completed before your home study actually is finalized so that your social worker is able to cite that in your home study that this was all completed. So the next document that I want to bring your attention to is the child preference form. This is a document that is used to identify your preferences for a child as to gender, age range, and medical needs. You should have already completed this and returned this to me in order for Nikki to be able to review it along with reviewing your application. If not, then this is something that we will have you fill out as soon as possible to get this uploaded into your file to know the special needs that you are open to. Please note that this document may be updated throughout the adoption process, so you are able to adjust your preferences as you continue being educated about adoption, talking to others who have adopted children with specific needs, and meeting with medical professionals to determine what you feel that you can handle. So this form is used by your social worker in writing your approval statement in the home study, and also by the India team as Nikki reviews that um, document as she's viewing the waiting children's list for children who might meet your preferences. The service plan is a document that identifies the 6 adoption services that are rendered in intercountry adoptions and who is responsible for providing each service. Nightlight Christian Adoptions is your primary provider and placing agency for a child from India. As the primary provider, we will coordinate your adoption, help identify a child for adoption, and arrange for the adoption. We will also work with the agency providing your home study and coordinate with the staff to provide translation and travel arrangements in India. As your primary service provider, Nightlight is available to assist you whether you are in the United States or traveling abroad. We will be working with the central authority in India known as Central Adoption Resource Authority, or CARA. They are responsible for identifying children who are available for adoption and arranging the adoptions and securing the necessary paperwork showing termination of parental rights and the agreement to adoption. In India, a majority of the children are abandoned, but occasionally a child will be relinquished by their biological parents. The orphanage and the local state agency will work with CARA to get all the appropriate documentation in order. CARA approves the child's background study, and your home study provider will perform the home study on you as the prospective adoptive parent. You will not have direct contact with the central authority in India. CARA works with our foreign supervised provider. Her name is Jyoti Segal, and she lives in India to ensure that the laws of India are being followed with regard to adoptions. On this form, please fill in the name of your home study agency and their phone number, as well as the social worker from that agency and their contact information. Nightlight and your home study provider will make non-judicial termination in the best interest of a child and the appropriateness of an adoptive placement for a child. CARA, in conjunction with Nightlight and our foreign supervised provider, will monitor a case after a child has been placed with our family. In India and most states, families are not required to travel for court, and the adoption is finalized prior to you traveling to India. If you should decide to dissolve the adoption after traveling to India, our agency would work with CARA to assume custody and provide care until the child could be placed back in the orphanage. Also in this document is a list of contacts at Nightlight who work in the India program, as well as our email addresses. As discussed previously, Nikki Lassi is currently the director of the India program and works with families once their dossier is completed up until they receive a referral through the travel process until you come home with your child. I work with families from the inquiry stage to dossier submission, and also once you are in the post-adoption phase. I also work with your home study provider through your home study phase, and Nikki also reviews the home studies for the program. The last thing is the dossier instruction booklet. I trust that you were able to read through that booklet and also watch the webinar, which touches on specific documents and items. Typically, I would answer any questions about the dossier at this time, but since this is a recording, we will now need to set up a phone call to discuss any additional questions that you may have about the dossier instructions, as I will be working with you through the dossier phase. And if at any time you have any questions about the dossier documents through this process, my email address is listed here, which is jordan@nightlight.org, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. At this point, your orientation is complete. You have a checklist on our online portal with some orientation documents you need to either sign and upload or sign electronically. You have watched a webinar regarding parent education and all of the parent education and documents under the International Parent Education Checklist, also in our portal. You have watched a webinar to discuss the dossier instructions and read through that booklet. You are probably wondering, where in the world do I start and what do I do next? Our suggestion is to identify and talk to the agency who will be doing your home study. Once you talk to them, and that includes Nightlight if you're living in one of our serviced areas, you can finish that service plan and then the home study information sheet, which are both located on that orientation checklist, and make sure that they are approved to be your home study provider and that you can begin your parent education at that point once that's complete. Don't forget to submit your documents as they are completed, and as always, if you ever have any issues with downloading or uploading any of the PDFs from that checklist, feel free to email me and I can get that to you or get documents uploaded for you if there's any issues with that. And just feel free to contact us with any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have. So this concludes the webinar. Please email me at jordan@nightlight.org to let me know that you have completed watching this webinar, and you may email me any questions or we can schedule a phone call to discuss any questions that you may have more in depth, as I'm happy to help in whichever way is best for you. Have a great day, and we are looking very much forward to working with you on your adoption journey.